Good evening and welcome back to Sports Talk ATL. I am Chase Earl, joined by Alex Lord. A ton of stuff to cover. We did not mean to be off this week, but technical difficulties. My computer just went nonsense. They couldn't fix it for like a week. So we missed a ton of stuff, and we're going to start off with the biggest news probably in baseball so far this season, and that is Spencer Strider, the guy that was the preseason overwhelming favorite for the NL Cy Young Award, is probably going to need Tommy John surgery. Now, I don't like to speculate, but the thing is, it's a UCL sprain. Brian Snitker hasn't once said that this isn't going to be Tommy John. He's already had a second opinion. If there was something positive that was going to come out of that second opinion, they probably would have released it to the public to kind of ease the concerns of Braves fans. I wouldn't even be surprised that if he's already had the surgery, they're just waiting to announce that it's been a successful one. Maybe they want to give Spencer Strider a few more days to see if get a third opinion, see if it heals up something. But the reality is, regardless, he's going to be out for multiple months, if not the 18th months needed for Tommy John surgery. How are they going to replace him? That's the big question now.
There is no, the simple answer is you can't replace them. And, in sports, this isn't just baseball. Injuries are inevitable. We've talked about it a lot. Obviously, it would have been nice if it wasn't our best pitcher, but this was always anticipated. One of the 5 Braves opening day roster starters was going to go down with an injury. It's just the way of baseball, especially nowadays with everything. You could speculate why the pitching injuries. I'm not here to do that, but it was always coming. It sucks it was Spencer Strider. The fact is, Alex Anthopoulos worked this offseason and in anticipation of an injury to the rotation coming. At this point in the season, you have to trust what you did in the offseason. You had conviction coming into the season with what you had at the major league level. At the minor league levels, now you just got to lean on it. And you have several months to kind of, you have a runway, several month-long runway to kind of see who internally can maybe help mitigate the loss of Spencer Strider. Again, nobody is going to replace Spencer Strider. There's like 3 guys on the planet who could even compare to Spencer Strider. So it's going to be, a committee approach. We have to have multiple people contributing to the Braves rotation. And, I think, the early, I'd say the early horse, I guess, has got to be Bryce Elder, right?
Yeah, listen, you're completely right. There is no replacing Spencer Strider. So people talking about trades and stuff like that, first of all, it's way too early to do any of that. Nobody's trading pitchers on their roster in April because they can get more for them at the trade deadline when everyone else is bidding for their services. So even the crappy teams like the White Sox, they're going to hang on to their guys because there's no point in trading them in April when they get more in June. And then everyone else, the 20 to 25 teams that still have hope right now, they're obviously not going to trade any of their pitchers. There's so many teams that have starting pitchers. It's April. There's not going to be any trades. We can talk about them because eventually at the trade deadline, there might be some conversations that Alex Anthopoulos has. But at this point, yeah, it is that depth that we're talking about. Now, the depth hasn't looked great. A.J. Smith-Shawver has struggled early on. Hurston Waldrop struggled in his first start in Double-A Mississippi. That guy's not even close to ready. I can tell you that for sure. So you're really looking at Bryce Elder, Dylan Dodd, Darius Vines, guys that have kind of looked impressive. We saw what Winans did. Not exactly sexy, but listen, you're not going to replace him. You're just looking for someone to kind of right the ship with. And I will say the one thing that it does is the margin for error now with this Braves rotation. It's been taken away, and it's been taken away in April, and that sucks because what Alex Anthopoulos did this offseason is kind of went out and got Chris Sale and said, hey, we've had guys injured going into the postseason every single time. We're really looking for that third starter. Let's make sure we have 4. Well, quickly, in less than 2 weeks, we have 3. So the margin for error, and you are trusting in a Max Fried that has an injury history, Chris Sale injury history, 40-year-old Morton. Like, yes, I understand. Like, you're scrambling. But the thing is, everybody would be scrambling if they had Spencer Strider on their roster and they lost him for the entire season and after his second start. So this is an unfortunate position. The Braves, as of now, you can still feel confident. But yes, the margin of error shrunk significantly because he's, in my opinion, as I've said several times, the best pitcher in baseball.
We can all play boo-hoo because, well, first of all, he's obviously an integral piece of the team, to win a championship. But outside of that, he's just fun to watch. And that goes for baseball fans as a whole. You don't want to see one of the most talented, like, even though Jacob deGrom was with the Mets all those years and we hate the Mets, like, it was still, I don't want to see Jacob deGrom hurt. Like, I like watching him pitch. And the same could be said for Spencer Strider outside of the few fans and the bad apples of the fan bases. But I think no matter who the Braves would have lost, nobody's feeling bad in the clubhouse. Like, yeah, it sucks, but like, this is a part of baseball. And this team, as currently constructed, without Spencer Strider, is talented enough to still win a World Series. The lineup hasn't missed a beat. Postseason aside, that whole thing, regular season wise, this lineup hasn't missed a beat. And the big question marks, we talked about it last week. This is the second week of the season. All of the early questions have been answered in spade. Jared Kelenic, Orlando Arcia, Marcell Ozuna, Ronald Acuna hasn't started like he's a defending MVP champion, but like, who's worried about Ronald Acuna Jr.? So like, and the bullpen, and it did just get beat up against the Mets, but it did just pitch a shutout against the NL champion Diamondbacks in a sweep. So like, this team is still talented enough to win a World Series. The stars just have to align like they always do in MLB postseason. That's all it is. It's a crapshoot.
Yeah, I mean, you could make the argument that with a healthy Chris Sale, Max Fried, and Charlie Morton,
I would make that argument.
You still have the best rotation the Braves have had in quite some time, at least entering the postseason. If those guys can enter the postseason healthy and 100%, I mean, you look at what happened last year. We had Bryce Elder as the third start. 2 years ago, you have Max Fried and Spencer Strider sick and injured. Even in 2021, you had guys like Dylan Lee pitching in the World Series, and you win the World Series against a very dominant, potent offense Astros lineup. So yeah, obviously you can win the World Series. Things just have to align. You have to hit. That's probably pretty.
It doesn't
key.
matter if we had 3 Spencer Striders in the postseason the last 2 years. Like, we would have lost both series because the offense didn't show up.
I mean, you hit, you win the World Series. You don't hit, you don't win the World Series. Spencer Strider has pitched 3 playoff games and lost all of them. So, like, as good as he is, you got to hit and help your pitcher out to win games. And if you don't do that, it doesn't matter who is on the mound. The one thing that I do want to address, because I've heard it ad nauseum from Braves fans, and I'm not going to go into the ins and out of the Trevor Bauer situation, but you guys want to hear it. So I'm just going to tell you the exact reason why he's not going to be a member of the Atlanta Braves. And I'm going to leave out the off the field issues all aside. I'm going to leave that out. He's a crappy teammate. He has had more feuds with organizations, teammates, and players over his career than Tiger Woods has had mistresses. Yeah, that's a master shout out. Shout out Tiger. No offense to you, but I'm just saying this guy has his reputation precedes himself. How many times has Alex Anthopoulos said that the fit in the clubhouse is just as important as the talent on the field? There's been several. I mean, he said that probably 50 to 100 times since he became the general manager of the Atlanta Braves. And you guys want to bring in a guy, once again, not even going to bring up the off the field issues, because whatever opinion you have, you can have it. I don't really care. You guys want to bring in a guy that literally is a quirky, prickly personality that a lot of players do not like. The Arizona Diamondbacks traded him before he even pitched in the major leagues because he was such a head case. And yes, he is an unbelievable talent. Do not get me wrong. Do I think he could help the Braves from a winning standpoint in terms of maybe the postseason? There's a possibility. But at the end of the day, if he hurts clubhouse chemistry, it's not going to happen. So let's just leave it at that. It's just 0% going to happen. And by the way, there's a reason 30 teams hasn't signed him. Like, there's a lot of guys that have done bad things in this league. I mean, literally every single league has guys that have done terrible, terrible things and have had no problem getting into the league. Yet a Cy Young caliber pitcher, when the teams have the details that we don't have, has not made it back. Like, is there no sign to anybody that could be an issue?
Yeah, and it's not like this guy is just a DH where, everybody, probably doesn't need. This guy is a starting pitcher, and if there was one thing every team in baseball needs, it's another starting pitcher. So, like, the need is there, and the obvious supply that you think is there is not being signed. I think, that's a sign is what you should take. And I agree with you. There's 3 facets to this. It's the on-the-field performance, it's the legal performance, and then it's the clubhouse performance. And you could take 2 of those and completely throw them off the map. The first one, he can't even get past. He will not be an Atlanta Brave. And this doesn't just go for Trevor Bauer. Like, this is just for every single person that you want our Atlanta Braves to sign, to trade for, to draft. If they are a wonky fit in the clubhouse, they have a bad reputation, they have a bad attitude, they don't like to show up and work, the Braves are not going to be interested, no matter how talented.
And the Braves have had one of the most pristine reputations ever since I have been alive. They do not go out there and sign guys dealing with legal issues. They just don't do that. Now, you can say Marcell Ozuna. He was already signed. The Braves owed him $50 million. If they owed Trevor Bauer $50 million, maybe we're having a different conversation. The other part is, guess what Marcell Ozuna is the best at? Guess what everyone raves about every single day, even when he was crappy, is him being a good teammate. That is the number one reason he's still with the Atlanta Braves. If he had a bad attitude during the time he was struggling, it didn't matter if the Braves owed him $100 million. He would have been off the roster.
Well, the important notion there is, like, if all things were good with Trevor Bauer, like in terms of his play on the field, I'm sure he would be fine in the clubhouse. And that's one thing for anybody in any area of life, in any facet of the economy, is when things are going good, it's very easy to be happy-go-lucky, a good teammate. But it's when things are going bad, if you could still keep up that attitude, still keep up that dedication. I'm not saying Trevor Bauer wouldn't be dedicated to his craft. I'm saying that's when his true colors would truly start to show. And that's what the Braves and every other organization is avoiding outside of the PR nightmare. Half of the Braves fan base is women, and they absolutely can't stand the guy. You can't get around that fact. And whether your opinion or not on the legal thing, you have to consider that. Alex Anthopoulos has to consider that. And you trying to just write it off is being a little naive. Like, grow up. He has to consider that.
Yeah, I mean, all these things have to be considered.
Everything.
The fact is, what isn't being considered, and I can guarantee you this with my whole entire heart, with this entire show on the line, with my entire company on the line, is the fact that they are not interested in Trevor Bauer, and they're not going to be interested in Trevor Bauer. And right now, they don't need to be.
No.
Like, right now, this is not a desperate team. Signing Trevor Bauer is for a desperate team. The Braves are not there yet. Maybe they are later in the year after multiple other guys go down, but I'll still guarantee you Trevor Bauer won't be an option. They'll figure it out. Hope the bats can hit. Maybe Dylan Lee starts another game in the World Series. Coming after the break, more Braves talk. We're going to talk about the other things not related to Spencer Strider.